Circle of red-dipped muzzles with a fringe of glistening white teeth, whining with a vicious eagerness that near matched the fury of the red eyes. MacReady stood confidently alert at the corridor bend, the gustily muttering torch held loose and ready for action in his hands. He stepped aside without moving his eyes from the beast as Barclay came up. There was a slight, tight smile on his lean, bronze face. Norris's voice sailed down the corridor, and Barclay stepped forward. The cable was taped to the long handle of a snow shovel. The two conductors split and held 18 inches apart by a scrap of lumber, lashed at right angles across the far end of the handle. Bare copper conductors, charged with 220 volts, glinted in the light of pressure lamps. The thing mewed and hated and dodged. MacReady advanced to Barclay's side. The dogs beyond sensed the plan with the almost telepathic intelligence of trained huskies. Their whining grew shriller, softer, and their mincing steps carried them nearer. Abruptly, a huge, night-black Alaskan leapt onto the trapped thing. It turned squalling, saber-clawed feet slashing. Barclay leapt forward and jabbed. A weird, shrill scream rose and choked out. The smell of burnt flesh in the corridor intensified. Greasy smoke curled up. The echoing pound of the gas-electric dynamo down the corridor became a slogging thud. The red eyes clouded over in stiffening, jerking travesty of a face. Arm-like, leg-like members quivered and jerked. The dogs leapt forward, and Barclay yanked back his shovel-handled weapon. The thing on the snow did not move as gleaming teeth ripped it open. 5 end. 6. Gary looked about the crowded room. 32 men, some tense nervously standing against the wall, some uneasily relaxed, some sitting, most perforce standing at an intimate as sardines. 32 plus the 5 engaged in sewing up wounded dogs made 37 the total personnel. Gary started speaking. All right, I guess we're here. Some of you, 3 or 4 at most, saw what happened. All of you have seen that thing on the table and can get a general idea. Anyone hasn't, I'll lift. His hand strayed to the tarpaulin bulking over the thing on the table. There was an acrid odor of singed flesh seeping out of it. The men stirred restlessly, hasty denials. It looks rather as though Chalmark isn't going to lead any more teams, Gary went on. Blair wants to get at this thing and make some more detailed examination. We want to know what happened and make sure right now that this is permanently, totally dead, right? Conan grinned. Anybody that doesn't can sit up with it tonight. All right then, Blair, what can you say about it? What was it? Gary turned to the little biologist. I wonder if we ever saw its natural form. Blair looked at the covered mass. It may have been imitating the beings that built that ship, but I don't think it was. I think that was its true form. And those of us who were up near the bend saw the thing in action. The thing on the table is the result. When it got loose, apparently, it started looking around. Antarctica's still frozen as it was ages ago when the creature first saw it and froze. From my observations while it was thawing out, and the bits of tissue I cut and hardened them, I think it was native to a hotter planet than Earth. It couldn't in its natural form stand the temperature. There is no life on Earth that can live in Antarctica during the winter, but the best compromise is the dog. It found the dogs, and somehow got near enough to Charnock to get him. The others smelled it, heard it. I don't know. Anyway, they went wild and broke chains and attacked it before it was finished. The thing we found was part Charnock. Queerly only half dead, part Charnock, half digested by the jelly-like protoplasm of that creature, and part the remains of the thing we originally found, sort of melted down to the basic protoplasm. When the dogs attacked it, it turned into the best fighting thing it could think of, some otherworldly beast, apparently. Turned, snapped Gary. How? Every living thing is made up of jelly, protoplasm and minute microscopic things called nuclei, which control the bulk, the protoplasm. This thing was just a modification of that same worldwide plan of nature, cells made up of protoplasm controlled by infinitely tinier nuclei. You physicists might compare it. An individual cell of any living thing with an atom. The bulk of the atom, the space-filling part, is made up of the electron orbits. But the character of the thing is determined by the atomic nucleus. This isn't wildly beyond what we already know. It's just a modification we haven't seen before. It's as natural as logical as any other manifestation of life. It obeys exactly the same laws. The cells are made of protoplasm, their character determined by the nucleus. Only in this creature, the cell nuclei can control those cells as it will. Only in this creature, the cell nuclei can control those cells at will. It digested Charnock, and as it digested, studied every cell of his tissue, and shaped its own cells to imitate them exactly. Parts of it, parts that had time to finish changing, are dog cells. But they don't have dog cell nuclei. Blair lifted a fraction of the tarpaulin, a torn dog's leg with stiff gray fur protruded. That, for instance, isn't dog at all. It's imitation. Some parts I'm uncertain about. The nucleus was hiding itself, covering up with dog cell imitation nucleus. In time, not even a microscope would have shown the difference. Suppose, asked Norris bitterly, it had had lots of time. Then it would have been a dog. The other dogs would have accepted it. We would have accepted it. I don't think anything would have distinguished it. Not microscope nor X-ray, nor any other means. This is a member of a supremely intelligent race, a race that has learned the deepest secrets of biology and turned them to its use. What was it planning to do? Barclay looked at the humped tarpaulin. Blair grinned unpleasantly. The wavering halo of thin hair around his bald pate wavered in a stir of air. Take over the world, I imagine. Take over the world. Just it, all by itself. Conan gasped. Set itself up as a lone dictator. No. Blair shook his head. The scalpel he had fumbling in his bony fingers dropped. He bent to pick it up, so that his face was hidden as he spoke. It would become the population of the world. Populate the world. Does it reproduce asexually? Blair shook his head and gulped. It doesn't have to. It weighed 85 pounds. Charnock weighed about 90. It would have become Charnock, and had 85 pounds left to become, Jack, for instance, or Chinook. It can imitate anything. That is, become anything. If it had reached the Antarctic Sea, it would have become a seal, maybe 2 seals. They might have attacked a killer whale and become either killers, or a herd of seals. Or maybe it would have caught an albatross or a squaw gull, and flown to South America. Norris cursed softly, and every time it digested something and imitated it, it would have had its original bulk left to start again. Blair finished. Nothing would kill it. It has no natural enemies, because it becomes whatever it wants to. If a killer whale attacked it, it would become a killer whale. If it was an albatross and an eagle attacked it, it would become an eagle. Or it might become a female eagle. Go back, build a nest and lay eggs. Are you sure that thing from hell is dead? Dr. Copper asked softly. Yes, thank heaven. The little biologist gasped. After they drove the dogs off, I stood there poking Barr's electrocution thing into it for 5 minutes. It's dead and cooked. And then we can only give thanks that this is Antarctica, where there is not one single solitary living thing for it to imitate, except these animals in camp. Us. Blair giggled. It can imitate us. Dogs can't make 400 miles to the sea. There's no food. There aren't any squaw gulls to imitate it this season. There aren't any penguins this far inland. There's nothing that can reach the sea from this point, except us. We've got brains. We can do it, don't you see? It's gotta imitate us. It's gotta be one of us. That's the only way it can fly an airplane, fly a plane for 2 hours, and rule. Be all Earth's inhabitants. A world for the taking, if it imitates us. It didn't know yet. It hadn't had a chance to learn. It was rushed, hurried, took the thing nearest its own size. Look, I'm Pandora. I opened the box. And the only hope that can come out of this, that nothing can come out. You didn't see me. I did it. I fixed it. I smashed every magneto. Not a plane can fly, nothing can fly. Blair giggled and lay down on the floor crying. Chief Pilot Van Wall made for the door. His feet were fading echoes in the corridors as Dr. Copper bent unhurriedly over the little man on the floor. From his office at the end of the room, he brought something in injector solution into Blair's arm. He might come out of it when he wakes up, he sighed, rising. MacReady helped him lift the biologist onto a nearby bunk. It all depends on whether we can convince him that thing is dead. Van Wall ducked into the shack, brushing his heavy blonde beard absently. I didn't think a biologist would do a thing like that. He missed the spares and the second cache. It's all right. I smashed them. Commander Gary nodded. I was wondering about the radio. Dr. Copper snorted. You don't think it can leak out on a radio wave, do you? You'd have 5 rescue attempts in the next 3 months if you stopped the broadcasts. The thing to do is talk loud and not make a sound. I wonder. MacReady looked speculatively at the doctor. MacReady looked speculatively at the doctor. It might be like an infectious disease. Everything that drank any of its blood. Copper shook his head. Blair missed something. Imitate it may, but it has to a certain extent its own body chemistry. Its own metabolism. If it didn't, it would become a dog. And be a dog and nothing more. It has to be an imitation dog. Therefore, you can detect it by serum tests. And its chemistry, since it comes from another world, must be so wholly radically different that a few cells, such as gained by drops of blood, would be treated as disease germs by the dog or human body. Blood. Would one of those imitations bleed? Norris demanded. Surely. Nothing mystic about blood. Muscle is about 90% water. Blood differs only in having a couple % more water and less connective tissue. They'd bleed all right, Copper assured him. Blair sat up in his bunk suddenly. Conant. Where's Conant? The physicist moved over toward the little biologist. Here I am. What do you want? And you, giggled Blair. He lapsed back into the bunk, contorted with silent laughter. Conant looked at him blankly. Am I what? Are you there? Blair burst into gales of laughter. Are you Conant? The beast wanted to be man, not a dog. 6 End. Seven. Dr. Copper rose warily from the bunk and washed the hypodermic carefully. The little tinkles it made seemed loud in the packed room now that Blair's gurgling laughter had finally quieted. Cooper looked toward Gary and shook his head slowly. Hopeless, I'm afraid. I don't think we can ever convince him the thing is dead now. Norris laughed uncertainly. I'm not sure you can convince me. Oh, damn you, MacReady. MacReady. Commander Gary turned to look from Norris to MacReady curiously. The nightmares, Norris explained. He had a theory about the nightmares we had at the secondary station after finding that thing. And that was. Gary looked at MacReady levelly. Norris answered for him jerkily, uneasily. That the creature wasn't dead, had a sort of enormously slowed existence. An existence. That permitted it nonetheless to be vaguely aware of the passing of time, Of our coming, after endless years, I had a dream it could imitate things. Well, Cooper grunted, it can. Don't be an ass, Norris snapped. That's not what's bothering me. In the dream, it could read minds, read thoughts and ideas and mannerisms. What's so bad about that? It seems to be worrying you more than the thought of the joy we're going to have with a madman in an Antarctic camp. Copper nodded toward Blair's sleeping form. MacReady shook his giant, great head slowly. You know that Conant is Conant, because he not merely looks like Conant, which we're beginning to believe that beast might be able to do. But he thinks like Conant, moves himself around as Conant does. That takes more than merely a body that looks like him. That takes Conant's own mind and thoughts and mannerisms. Therefore, though you know that the thing might make itself look like Conant, you aren't much bothered, because you know it has a mind from another world, a totally inhuman mind, that could impossibly react and think and talk like a man we know. And do it so well as to fool us for a moment. The idea of the creature imitating one of us is fascinating but unreal, because it is too completely unhuman. To deceive us. It doesn't have a mind, not a human mind. As I said before, Norris repeated, looking steadily at MacReady, you can say the damnedest things at the damnedest times. Will you be so good as to finish that thought, one way or the other? Kinner, the scar-faced expedition cook, had been standing near Conant. Suddenly he moved down the length of the crowded room toward the familiar galley. He shook the ashes from the galley stove noisily. It would do it no good, said Dr. Copper, softly as though thinking out loud. To merely look like something it was trying to imitate, it would have to understand its feelings, its reactions. It is unhuman. It has powers of imitation beyond any conception of man. A good actor, by training himself, can imitate another man's mannerisms, well enough to fool most people. Of course, no actor could imitate so perfectly as to deceive men who had been living with the imitated one in the complete lack of privacy of an Antarctic camp. That would take a superhuman skill. Oh, you've got that bug too, huh? Norris cursed softly. Conant, standing alone at one end of the room, looked about at him wildly, his face white, a gentle eddying of the manhead. Crowded them slowly down toward the other end of the room, so that he stood quite alone. My lord, will you two Jeremiah shut up? Conant's voice shook. What am I? Some kind of a microscopic specimen you're dissecting. Some unpleasant worm you're discussing in the third person. MacReady looked up at him, his slowly twisting hand stopped for a moment. Having a lovely time. Wish you were here. Signed, everybody. Conant, if you think you're having a hell of a time, just move over on the other end for a while. You've got one thing we haven't. You know what the answer is. I'll tell you this, right now you're the most feared and respected man in Big Magna. Lord, I wish you could see your eyes. Conant gasped. Stop staring, will you? What the hell are you going to do? Have you any suggestions, Dr. Copper? Commander Gary asked steadily. The present situation is impossible. Oh, is it? Conant snapped. Come over here and look at that crowd. By heaven, they look exactly like that gang of huskies around the corner bend. Benning, will you stop hefting that damned ice axe? The coppery blade rang on the floor as the aviation mechanic nervously dropped it. He bent over and picked it up instantly, hefting it slowly, turning it in his hands, his brown eyes moving jerkily around the room. Copper sat down on the bunk beside Blair. The wood creaked noisily in the room. Far down the corridor, a dog yelped in pain, and the dog's driver's tense voices floated softly back. Microscopic examination, said the doctor thoughtfully. Would be useless, as Blair pointed out. Considerable time has passed. However, serum tests would be definitive. Serum tests? What do you mean exactly? Commander Gary asked. If I had a rabbit that had been injected with human blood, poisoned rabbits, of course, as is the blood of any animal save that of another rabbit, and the injections continued in increasing doses for some time, the rabbit would be human immune. If a small quantity of its blood were drawn off, allowed to separate in a test tube, and to clear the serum. and to the clear serum a bit of human blood were added. There would be a visible reaction proving the blood was human. If cow or dog blood were added, or any protein material other than that one thing, human blood, no reaction would take place. That would prove definitively. Can you suggest where I might catch a rabbit for you, Doc? Norris asked. That is nearer than Australia. We don't want to waste time going that far. I know there aren't any rabbits in Antarctica, Copper nodded. But that is simply the usual animal. Any animal except man will do, a dog, for instance. But it will take several days, and due to the greater size of the animal, considerable blood. 2 of us will have to contribute. Would I do? Gary asked. That will make 2, Copper nodded. I'll get to work on it right away. What about Conant in the meantime? Kinner demanded. I'm going out that door and head off for the Ross Sea before I cook for him. He may be human, Copper started. Conant burst out in a flood of curses. Human. Maybe human? You damn sawbones. What in hell do you think I am? A monster, Copper snapped sharply. Now shut up and listen. Conant's face drained of color, and he sat down heavily as in the indictment was put in words. Until we know, you know as well as we do that we have the reason to question the fact, and only you know how that question is to be answered. We may reasonably be expected to lock you up. If you are unhuman, you're a lot more dangerous than poor Blair there, and I'm going to see that he's locked up thoroughly. I expect that his next stage will be a violent desire to kill you, all the dogs, and probably all of us. When he wakes, he'll be convinced we're all inhuman, and nothing on the planet will ever change his conviction. It would be kinder to let him die, but we can't do that, of course. He's going in one check, and you can stay in Cosmos House with your cosmic ray apparatus, which is about what you do anyway. I've got to fix up a couple of dogs. Conant nodded bitterly. I'm human? Hurry that test. Your eyes, Lord, I wish you could see your eyes staring. Commander Gary watched anxiously as Clark, the dog handler, held the big brown husky, while Copper began the injection treatment. The dog was not anxious to cooperate. The needle was painful, and already he'd experienced considerable needlework that morning. 5 stitches held close a slash that ran from his shoulder across the ribs halfway down his body. One long fang was broken off short. The missing part was to be found half buried in the shoulder bone of the monstrous thing on the table in the ad building. How long will that take? Gary asked, pressing his arm gently. It was sore from the prick of the needle Dr. Copper had used to withdraw blood. Copper shrugged. I don't know, to be frank. I know the general method. I've used it on rabbits, but I haven't experimented with dogs. They're big, clumsy animals to work with. Naturally, rabbits are preferable and serve ordinarily. In civilized places, you can buy a stock of human immune rabbits from suppliers, and not many investigators take the trouble to prepare their own. What do they want with them back there? Clark asked. Criminology is one large field. A says he didn't murder B, but the blood on the shirt came from killing a chicken. The state makes a test, then it's up to A to explain how it is the blood reacts on human immune rabbits, but not on chicken immunes. What are we going to do with Blair in the meantime? Gary asked warily. It's all right to let him sleep where he is for a while, but when he wakes up, Barclay and Benning are fitting some bolts on the door of a Cosmos House, Copper replied grimly. Conant's acting like a gentleman. I think perhaps the way the other men look at him makes him rather want privacy. Lord knows heretofore we've all of us individually prayed for a little privacy. Clark laughed britly. Not anymore, thank you. The more the merrier. Blair, Copper went on, will also have to have privacy. And locks. He's going to have a pretty definite plan in mind when he wakes up. Ever hear the old story of how to stop hoof and mouth disease in cattle? Clark and Gary shook their heads silently. If there isn't any hoof and mouth disease, there won't be any hoof and mouth disease, Copper explained. You get rid of it by killing every animal that exhibits it, and every animal that's been near the diseased animal. Blair's a biologist and knows the story. He's afraid of this thing we loosed. The answer is probably pretty clear in his mind now. Kill everybody and everything in this camp before a squaw gull or a wandering albatross coming in with the spring chances out this way and catches the disease. Clark's lips curled in a twisted grin. Sounds logical to me. If things get too bad, maybe we'd better let Blair loose. It would save us committing suicide. Might also make something of a vow that if things get bad, we see that does happen. Copper laughed softly. The last man alive in Big Magnet wouldn't be a man, he pointed out. Somebody's got to kill those creatures that don't desire to kill themselves, you know. We don't have enough thermite to do it all at once, and the Decanite explosive wouldn't help much. I have an idea that even small pieces of one of those things will be self-sufficient. If, said Gary thoughtfully, they can modify their protoplasm at will, won't they simply modify themselves to birds and fly away? They can read all about birds and imitate their structure without even meeting them, or imitate perhaps birds of their own planet. Copper shook his head and helped Clark to free the dog. Man studied birds for centuries trying to learn how to make a machine to fly like them. He never did do the trick. His final success came when he broke away entirely and tried new methods. Knowing the general idea and knowing the detailed structure of wing and bone and nerve tissue is something far, far different. And as for other world birds, perhaps, in fact, very probably. The atmospheric conditions here are so vastly different that the birds couldn't fly. Perhaps even the being came from a planet like Mars with such a thin atmosphere that there were no birds. Barclay came into the building trailing a length of airplane control cable. It's finished, Doc. Cosmos House can be opened from the inside. Now where do we put Blair? Copper looked toward Gary. There wasn't any biology building. I don't know where we can isolate him. How about East Cache? Gary said after a moment's thought. Will Blair be able to look after himself or need attention? He'll be capable enough. We'll be the ones to watch out. Copper assured him grimly. Take a stove, a couple of bags of coal, necessary supplies, and a few tools to fix it up. Nobody's been out there since last fall, have they? Gary shook his head. If he gets noisy, I thought that might be a good idea. Barclay hefted the tools he was carrying and looked up at Gary. If the muttering he's doing now is any sign, he's going to sing away the night hours, and we won't like his song. What's he saying? Copper asked. Barclay shook his head. I didn't care to listen much. You can if you want to, but I gathered that the blasted idiot had all the dreams McCready had and a few more. He slept beside the thing when we stopped on the trail coming in from secondary magnetic, remember? He dreamt the thing was alive and dreamt more details. And damn his soul, knew it wasn't all dream or had reason to. He knew it had telepathic powers that were stirring vaguely, and that it could not only read minds, but project thoughts. They weren't dreams, you see. They were stray thoughts that thing was broadcasting. The way Blair is broadcasting his thoughts now. A sort of telepathic muttering in its sleep. That's why he knew so much about its powers. I guess you and I, Doc, weren't so sensitive, if you want to believe in telepathy. I have to. Copper sighed. Dr. Ryan of Duke University has shown that it exists, shown that some are much more sensitive than others. Well, if you want to learn a lot of details, go listen in on Blair's broadcast. He's driven most of the boys out of the ad building. Kinner's rattling plant pans like coal going down a chute. When he can't rattle a pan, he shakes ashes. By the way, Commander, what are we going to do this spring, now the planes are out of it? Gary sighed. I'm afraid our expedition is going to be a loss. We cannot divide our strength now. It won't be a loss if we continue to live in command of this, Copper promised him. The find we've made, if we can get it under control, is important enough. The cosmic ray data, magnetic work and atmospheric work won't be greatly hindered. Gary laughed mirthlessly. I was just thinking of the radio broadcast, telling half the world about the wonderful results of our exploration flights, trying to fool men like Bird and Ellsworth back home there, that we're doing something. Copper nodded gravely. They'll know something's wrong, but men like that have judgment enough to know we wouldn't do tricks without some sort of reason. And we'll wait for our return to judge us. I think it comes to this. Men who know enough to recognize our deception will wait for our return. Men who have indiscretion and faith enough to wait will not have the experience to detect any fraud. We know enough of the conditions here to put through a good bluff. Just so they don't send rescue expeditions, Gary prayed. When, if, we're ever ready to come out, We'll have to send word to Captain Forsyth to bring a stock of magnetos with him when he comes down. But never mind that. You mean if we don't come out? Asked Barclay. I was wondering if a nice running account of an eruption or earthquake via radio with a swell wind-up by using a stick of decanide under the microphone would help. Nothing, of course. We'll entirely keep people out. One of those swell melodramatic last man alive scenes might make him go easy, though. And Gary smiled with genuine humor. Is everybody in camp trying to figure that out, too? Copper laughed. What do you think, Gary? We're confident we can win out, but not too easy about it, I guess. Clark grinned up from the dog he was petting into calmness. Confident, did you say, Doc? 7 and... Eight. Blair moved restlessly around the small shack. His eyes jerked and quivered in vague, fleeting glances at the 4 men with him. Barclay, 6 feet tall and weighing over 190 pounds. McReady, a bronze giant of a man. Dr. Copper, short, squatly powerful. And Benning, 5 feet 10 of wiry strength. Blair was huddled up against the far wall of the East Cache cabin, his gear piled in the middle of the floor beside the heating stove, forming an island between him and the 4 men. His bony hands clenched and fluttered, terrified. His pale eyes wavered uneasily as his bald, freckled head darted about in bird-like motion. I don't want anybody coming here. I'll cook my own food, he snapped nervously. Kidder may be human now, but I don't believe it. I'm gonna get out of here, but I'm not going to eat any food you send me. I want cans. Sealed cans. Okay, Blair, we'll bring them tonight, Barclay promised. You've got coal and the fire started. I'll make it last. Barclay started forward. Blair instantly scurried to the farthest corner. Get out. Keep away from me, you monster. The little biologist shrieked and tried to claw his way through the wall of the shack. Keep away from me, keep away. I won't be absorbed. I won't be. Barclay relaxed and moved back. Dr. Copper shook his head. Leave him alone, Bar. It's easy for him to fix the thing himself. We'll have to fix the door, I think. The 4 men let themselves out. Efficiently, Benning and Barclay fell to work. There were no locks in Antarctica. There were no locks in Antarctica. There wasn't enough privacy to make them needed. But powerful screws had been driven in each side of the door frame, and the spare aviation control cable, immensely strong woven steel wire, was rapidly cut between them and drawn taut. Barclay went to work with a drill and a keyhole saw. Presently he had a trap cut in the door through which goods could be passed without unlashing the entrance. 3 powerful hinges from a stock crate, 2 hasps, and a pair of 3-inch cotton pins made a proof against opening the other side. Blair moved about restlessly inside. He was dragging something over to the door with panting gasps and muttering frantic curses. Barclay opened the hatch and glanced in, Dr. Copper peering over his shoulder. Blair had moved the heavy bunk against the door. Could not be opened without his cooperation now. Don't know but what the poor man's right at that, McReady sighed. If he gets loose. It is his avowed intention to kill each and all of us as quickly as possible, which is something we don't agree with. But we've something on our side of that door that is worse than a homicidal maniac. If one or the other has to get loose, I think I'll come and undo these lashings here. Barclay grinned. You let me know, and I'll show you how to get these off fast. Let's go back. The sun was painting the northern horizon in multicolored rainbows still, though it was 2 hours before the horizon, and though it was 2 hours below the horizon. The field of drift swept off the north, sparkling under its flaming colors in a million reflected glories. Low mounds of rounded white on the northern horizon showed the magnet range was barely awash above the sweeping drift. Little eddies of wind lifted snow swirled away from their skis as they settled toward the main encampment, 2 miles away. The spidery finger of the broadcast radiator lifted a gaunt black needle against the white of the Antarctic continent. The snow under their skis was like fine sand, hard and gritty. Spring, said Benning bitterly, has come. Ain't we got fun? And I've been looking forward to getting away from this blasted hole in the ice. I wouldn't try it now if I were you, Barclay grunted. Guys, let's set out from here, and the next few days are going to be marvelously unpopular. How's your dog getting along, Dr. Copper? MacReady asked. Any results yet? In 30 hours. I wish there were. I gave him an injection of my blood today, but I imagine another 5 days will be needed. I don't know certainly enough to stop sooner. I've been wondering if Conan were changed. Would he have warned us so soon after the animal escaped? Wouldn't he have waited long enough for it to have a real chance to fix itself? Until we woke up naturally, MacReady asked slowly. The thing is selfish. You didn't think it looked as though it were possessed of a store of the higher justices, did you? Dr. Copper pointed out. Every part of it is all of it. Every part of it is all for itself, I imagine. If Conan were changed to save his skin, he'd have to. But Conan's feelings aren't changed. They're imitated perfectly. Or they're his own. Naturally, the imitation, imitating perfectly Conan's feelings, would do exactly what Conan would do. Say, couldn't Norris or Vane give Conan some kind of a test? If the thing is brighter than men, it might know more physics than Conan should, and they'd catch it out, Barclay suggested. Copper shook his head wearily. Not if it reads minds. You can't plan a trap for it. Vane suggested that last night. He hoped it would answer some of the questions of physics he'd like to know answers to. This expedition of 4ID is going to make life happy. Benning looked at his companions, each of us with an eye on the other to make sure he doesn't do something peculiar. Man, aren't we going to be a trusting bunch? Each man eyeing his neighbors with the grandest exhibition of faith and trust. I'm beginning to know what Conan meant by, I wish you could see your eyes. Every now and then we all have it, I guess. One of you looks around with a sort of, I wonder if the other three are, look. Incidentally, I'm not accepting myself. So far as we know, the animal's dead, with a slight question as to Conan. No others suspected. MacReady stated slowly. The always for order is merely a precautionary measure. I'm waiting for Gary to make it a 4 in a bunk, Barclay sighed. I thought I didn't have any privacy before, but since that order. 9. None watch more intensely than Conan. A little sterile glass test tube, half filled with straw-colored fluid. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 drops of clear solution. Dr. Copper had prepared from the drops of blood from Conan's arm. The tube was shaken carefully, and then set in a beaker of clear warm water. The thermometer read blood heat. A little thermostat clicked noisily, and the electric hot plate began to glow as the lights flickered slightly. And then, little. White flecks of precipitation were forming, snowing down in the clear straw-colored fluid. Lord, said Conan. He dropped heavily into a bunk, crying like a baby. 6 days. Conan sobbed. 6 days in there, wondering if that damn test would lie. Gary moved over silently and slipped his arm across the physicist's back. It couldn't lie, Dr. Copper said. The dog was human immune, and the serum reacted. He's all right, Norris gasped. Then the animal is dead. Dead forever. He is human, Copper spoke definitively, and the animal is dead. Kinner burst out laughing hysterically. MacReady turned toward him and slapped his face with a methodical 1-2, 1-2 action. The cook laughed, gulped, cried a moment, and sat up rubbing his cheeks, mumbling his thanks vaguely. I was scared. Lord, I was scared. Norris laughed bitterly. You think we weren't, you ape. You think maybe Conan wasn't. The ad building stood with a sudden rejuvenation. Voices laughed, the men clustering around Conan spoke with unnecessarily loud voices, jittery, nervous voices, relievedly friendly again. Somebody called out a suggestion and a dozen started for their skis. Blair, Blair might recover. Dr. Copper fussed with his test tubes in nervous relief, trying solutions. The party of relief for Blair's shack started at the door, skis clapping noisily. Down the corridor, the dogs set up a quick yelping howl as the air of excited relief reached them. Dr. Copper fussed with his tubes. MacReady noticed him first, sitting on the edge of the bunk, with two precipitin-widened test tubes of straw-colored fluid. His face whiter than the stuff in the tube, silent tears slipping down from horror-widened eyes. MacReady felt a cold knife of fear pierce through his heart and freeze in his breast. And Dr. Copper looked up. "Gary," he called hoarsely. "Gary, for the good Lord's sake, come here." Commander Gary walked toward him sharply. Silence clapped down on the ad building. Garnett looked up, rose stiffly from his seat. "Gary, tissue from the monster precipitates too. It proves nothing. Nothing. But the dog was monster immune too. That one of the two contributing blood. One of us two, you and I, Gary. One of us is a monster." "10. Bar. Call back those men before they tell Blair," MacReady said quietly. Barclay went to the door. Faintly his shouts came back to the tensely silent men in the room. Then he sat back. "They're coming," he said. "I didn't tell them why, just that Dr. Copper said not to go." MacReady, Gary sighed. "You're in command now. May the Lord help you. I cannot." The bronze giant nodded slowly, his deep eyes on Commander Gary. "I may be the one," Gary added. "I know I'm not, but I cannot prove it to you in any way. Dr. Copper's test has broken down. The fact that he showed it was useless. When it was to the advantage of the monster of that uselessness not known, would seem to prove he was human." Copper rocked back and forth slowly on the bunk. "I know I'm human. I can't prove it either. One of us two is a liar. For that test cannot lie, and it says one of us is. I gave proof that the test was wrong, which seems to prove I'm human. Now Gary has given that argument which proves me human. Which he, as the monster, should not do." Round and round and round and round, and Dr. Copper's head, then his neck, shoulders, began circling slowly in time to the words. Suddenly he was lying back on the bunk, roaring with laughter. "It doesn't have to prove one of us is a monster. It doesn't have to prove that at all. If we're all monsters, it works the same. We're all monsters, all of us. Conant and Gary and I, and all of you." MacReady, Van Wall, the blonde, bearded chief pilot, called softly. "You were on the way to an MD when you took up meteorology, weren't you? Can you make some kind of test?" MacReady went over to the Copper slowly, took the hypodermic from his hand and washed it carefully in 95% alcohol. Gary sat on the bunk edge with wooden face, watching Copper and MacReady expressionlessly. What Copper said is possible. MacReady sighed. "Van, will you help here?" "Thanks." The filled needle jabbed into Copper's thigh. The man's laughter did not stop, but slowly faded into sobs and sound sleep as the morphia took hold. MacReady turned again. The men who had stood for Blair stood at the far end of the room, skis dripping snow, their faces as white as their skis. Conant had a lighted cigarette in each hand, one he was puffing absently and staring at the floor. The heat of the one in his left hand attracted him, and he stared at it, and the one in the other hand stupidly for a moment. He dropped one and crushed it under his heel slowly. "Dr. Copper," MacReady repeated, "could be right. I know I'm human, but of course can't prove it. I'll repeat the test for my own information. Any of you others who wish to may do the same." 2 minutes later, MacReady held a test tube with white precipitant settling slowly from straw-colored serum. "It reacts to human blood too, so they aren't both monsters." "I didn't think they were," Van Wall sighed. "That wouldn't suit the monster either. We could have destroyed them if we knew. Why hasn't the monster destroyed us, do you suppose? It seems to be loose." MacReady snorted, then laughed softly. "Elementary, my dear Watson. The monster wants to have life forms available. It cannot animate a dead body, apparently. It is just waiting. Waiting until the best opportunities come. We who remain human, It is holding in reserve. Kinner shuddered violently. Hey, Mac. Would I know if I was a monster? Would I know if the monster had already got me? Oh, Lord. I may be a monster already. You'd know, MacReady answered. But we wouldn't. Norris laughed shortly, half hysterically. MacReady looked at the vial of serum remaining. There's one thing this damn stuff is good for, Dad, he said thoughtfully. Clark, will you and Van help me? The rest of the gang better stick together here, keep an eye on each other, he said bitterly. See that you don't get into mischief, shall we say? MacReady started down the tunnel toward Dogtown, with Clark and Benoit behind him. You need more serum? Clark asked. MacReady shook his head. Tests. There's 4 cows and a bull, and nearly 70 dogs down there. This stuff reacts only to human blood and monsters. 10 and 11. MacReady came back to the ad building and went silently to the washstand. Clark and Benoit joined him a moment later. Clark's lips had developed a tic, jerking into sudden, unexpected sneers. What did you do? Conant exploded suddenly. More immunizing. Clark snickered and stopped with a hiccup. Immunizing, Immune, all right. That monster, said Benoit steadily, is quite logical. Our immune dog was quite all right if we drew a little more serum for the test, but we won't make any more. Can't you use one man's blood on another dog? Norris began. There aren't, said MacReady softly, any more dogs, nor cattle, I might add. No more dogs. Benning sat down slowly. They're very nasty when they start changing, Van Wall said precisely, but slow. That electrocution iron you made up, Barclay, is very fast. There is only one dog left, our immune. The monster left that for us so we could play with our little test. The rest? He shrugged and dried his hands. The cattle? Gulped Kinner. Also, reacted very nicely. They look funny as hell when they start melting. The beast hasn't any quick escape when it's tied in dog chains or halters. And it had to be to imitate. Kinner stood up slowly. His eyes darted around the room and came to rest horribly quivering on a tin bucket in the galley. Slowly, step by step, he retreated toward the door, his mouth opening and closing silently, like a fish out of water. The milk, he gasped. I milked him an hour ago. His voice broke into a scream as he dived through the door. He was out on the ice cap without windproof or heavy clothing. Van Wall looked after him for a moment thoughtfully. He's probably hopelessly mad, he said at length. But he might be a monster escaping. He hasn't skis. Take a blowtorch in case. The physical motion of the chase helped them, something that needed doing. 3 of the other men were quietly being sick. Norris was lying flat on his back, his face greenish, looking steadily at the bottom of the bunk above him. Mac, how long have the cows not been cows? MacReady shrugged his shoulders hopelessly. He went over to the milk bucket with his little tube of serum, went to work on it. The milk clouded it, making certainty difficult. Finally, he dropped the test tube in the stand and shook his head. It tests negatively, which means either they were cows then or that. Being perfect imitations, they gave perfectly good milk. Copper stood restlessly in his sleep and gave a gurgling cross between a snore and a laugh. Silent eyes fastened on him. Would Morphia, a monster, somebody started to ask. Lord knows, MacReady shrugged. It affects every earthly animal I know of. Conrad suddenly raised his head. Mac, the dogs must have swallowed pieces of the monster, and the pieces destroyed them. The dogs were where the monster resided. I was locked up. Doesn't that prove? Van Wall shook his head. Sorry. Proves nothing about what you are. Only proves that you didn't do it. It doesn't do that. MacReady sighed. We are helpless because we don't know enough. And so jittery we don't think straight. Locked up. Ever watch a white corpuscle of the blood go through the wall of a blood vessel? No? It sticks out a pseudopod, and there it is, on the far side of the wall. Oh, said Van Wall unhappily. The cattle tried to melt down, didn't they? They could have melted down, become just a thread of stuff, and leaked under a door to recollect on the other side. Ropes? No, that wouldn't do it. They couldn't live in a sealed tank, or... If, said MacReady, you shoot it through the heart, and it doesn't die. It's a monster. That's the best test I can think of offhand. No dogs, said Gary quietly, and no cattle. It has to imitate men now. And locking up doesn't do any good. Your test might work, Mac, but I'm afraid it would be hard on the men. 22. 12. Clark looked up from the galley stove as Van Wall, Barclay, MacReady, and Benning came in, brushing the drip from their clothes. The other men jammed into the ad building and continued studiously to do as they were doing, playing chess, poker, reading. Ralston was fixing a sledge on the table. Van and Norris had their heads together over magnetic data, while Harvey read tables in a low voice. Dr. Copper snored softly in the bunk. Gary was working with Dutton over a sheaf of radio messages on the corner of Dutton's bunk. And a small fraction of the radio table, Conant was using most of the table for cosmic ray sheets. Quite plainly through the corridor, despite two closed doors, they could hear Kinner's voice. Clark banged a kettle onto the galley stove and beckoned MacReady silently. The meteorologist went over to him. I don't mind the cooking so damn much, Clark said nervously. But isn't there some way to stop that bird? We all agreed that it would be safe to move him into Cosmo's house. Kinner. MacReady nodded toward the door. I'm afraid not. I can dope him, I suppose, but we don't have an unlimited supply of morphia. And he's not in danger of losing his mind, just hysterical. Well, we're in danger of losing ours. You've been out for an hour and a half. That's been going on steadily ever since, and it was going on 2 hours before. There's a limit, you know. Gary wandered over slowly, apologetically. For an instant, MacReady caught the feral spark of fear, horror, in Clark's eyes, and knew at the same instant it was in his own. Gary or Copper, was certainly a monster. If he could stop that, I think it would be a sound policy, Mac. Gary spoke quietly. There are tensions enough in this room. We agreed that it would be safe for Kinner in there because everyone else in camp is under constant eyeing. Gary shivered slightly. And try in the Lord's name to find some test that will work, MacReady sighed. Watched or unwatched everyone's temps. Blair's jammed the trap so it won't open now. Says he's got food enough and keeps screaming, go away, you're monsters. I won't be absorbed, I won't. I'll tell men when they come, go away. So, we went away. There's no other test, Gary pleaded. MacReady shrugged his shoulders. Copper was perfectly right. The serum test could be absolutely definitive if it hadn't been contaminated. But that's the only dog left, and he's fixed now. Chemical tests. MacReady shook his head. Our chemistry isn't that good. I tried the microscope, you know. Gary nodded. Monster dog and real dog were identical. But you've got to go on. What are we going to do after dinner? Van Wall joined them quietly. Rotation sleeping? Half the crowd sleep, half stay awake. I wonder how many of us are monsters. All the dogs were. We thought we were safe, but somehow it got Copper or you. And Van Wall's eyes flashed uneasily. It may have gotten every one of you. All of you but myself, maybe wondering, looking. No, that's not possible. You just spring then.